we would have dealt with.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on News World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Authorities are still searching for the gunman who killed 2 students at Brown University, but the manhunt stretching beyond 72 hours as police again appealed to the public for help. Local officials said video footage shows a possible suspect wearing dark clothes and a face mask near the scene as residents remain on the edge. Australian police have charged a man with 59 offences, including a terrorism charge, over the shooting at Bondi Beach that killed many as funerals were held in Sydney, while police has confirmed an injured officer lost an eye while acting with courage during the shootings. Australian State Parliament to be recalled to pass stricter gun laws. This comes as local Premier said the Australian State Parliament of New South Wales will reconvene next week to discuss urgent legislation on gun control in the wake of the deadly Bondi shootings and consider protest reforms. Thailand's Pheu Thai Party has named Yongchanan Vongsavat as its main prime ministerial candidate for the February election as it seeks a comeback after its patriarch Thaksin Shinawatra was jailed, while Pheu Thai's support has declined with Yongchanan, a Shinawatra nephew with limited political experience, could be a breeze of fresh air to regain support. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Addis Ababa, where he has received Ethiopia's highest honor welcome as he starts his 2-day visit today, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali have agreed to elevate India-Ethiopia relations to a strategic partnership. US President Donald Trump has expanded a list of countries subject to a full travel ban prohibiting citizens from an additional 7 countries. The expanded ban goes into effect on January 1st of next year, while he has also added partial restrictions and entry limitations on additional 15 countries. According to Pentagon statements, senior US and Chinese defense officials met in Washington from December 15 to 16. The talks brought together US Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary Alvaro Smith and Chinese Major General Yi Jiang for the 19th annual US-China Defense Policy Coordination Talks. Beijing's ambassador to Moscow, Zhang Kanhui, has said that construction is advancing on a new Far Eastern gas route from Russia's Pacific coast to China. With exports due to begin in 2027, the project will link to Russia's Sakhalin-Khabarovsk-Vladivostok pipeline system as Moscow deepens energy ties with Beijing. Now for this hour, we start with Australia. Former Australian Treasurer and Liberal Party MP Josh Frydenberg is calling on the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to take what he calls personal responsibility following the Bondi shooting that killed 16 people. Speaking on Wednesday, Frydenberg has said that the Jewish community has been abandoned by the government and accused leaders of failing to adequately confront rising anti-Semitism, standing alongside Australian and Israeli flags. Opposition leader Susan Lee described the shooting as a wake-up call for the Prime Minister, urging stronger leadership and action. Frydenberg, who served as treasurer until 2022, said the attack has intensified fears within the Jewish community and highlighted broader concerns about public safety and hate crimes. The comments add political pressure on the government as it faces growing scrutiny over its response to extremism and community protection. Let's listen in.
As a Jewish community, we have been abandoned and left alone by our governments. Our governments have failed every Australian when it comes to fighting hate and anti-Semitism. Our Prime Minister, our government, has allowed Australia to be radicalised on his watch. It's time for him to accept personal responsibility for the death of 15 innocent people, including a 10-year-old child.
None of the events of the last 2 years were a wake-up call. Then surely this is the wake-up call that this Prime Minister needs to step up, to stand with Jewish Australians, and in doing so, stand with all fair-minded Australians. Enough is enough.
Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Doctor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, how is this Bondi shooting reshaping, political debate also during gun law, also towards gun laws, also around anti-Semitism, extremism, and now how do you think Australian government, Prime Minister in particular, has handled this situation?
Thank you, Asuma. I think this incident is shaping up into a political accountability issue, because what we are seeing now is the various member of parliaments of the opposition are questioning the credibility of the government in ensuring that these kind of incidents don't take place. And I think Prime Minister Albanese has his task cut out. So far, I think he has given matured statements. He has given his intention that he needs to strengthen the immigration laws. He needs to tighten the screening process. Also, he needs to form a system for the issue of gun licenses. And what I am hearing is that there may be a question mark on issue of a gun license to the immigrants. So if that is the case, I think they are moving in the right direction, because no society wants its ethnic population of a particular kind, like the Jews in this case, where almost in Australia there are 1.2 lakh Jews, almost 0.5% of the population, and the migrants constitute almost 31.5% of the population, 8.6 million people, and it's a sizable number because it's almost 1/3 of the state. It's a vote bank also for the political parties. That is why the opposition parties are raising these voices, because they want to give an impression that they are with the migrants and they will not want this situation to escalate. The second most the criticism is also targeting the intelligence coordination in Australia, the threat monitoring and the radicalization prevention, because what we are seeing is that the minds of a certain section of the society are being polluted. And I think that is a very, very serious kind of issue which the government will have to tackle, because the task of the government is cut out now. The society impact is also taking place, and this Ahmad al-Ahmad, the Syrian ex-Syrian policeman who confronted one of the attackers, is being projected to show that there is a social resilience in the civil society. Even being a Muslim, he was targeting another Muslim, so it shows a kind of a state citizen impact, which I think is good for the society. It will also calm down Jews also to a certain extent, because of this sort of incident taking place. And three important, I would summarize this entire episode with three important observations or analysis. One is the incremental tightening of the intelligence sharing mechanisms has to be done. The second aspect is enhanced visibility of security and symbolic and religious events, because here we saw hardly any police people were present at the site when the firing took place. And thirdly is that preventable violence, like they need to map out these important sensitive areas, and also to ensure that these kind of incidents can be prevented from happening in Australia, because it has a rather a great psychological effect on the people of Australia.
100%. And lastly, how should Australian policymakers balance this community protection and broader civil liberties when responding to these kind of crimes, especially when someone who does not have any criminal offense record becomes radicalized in their soil and leads to such cases?
So this is a very important, because I think the social media handles would need to be monitored. Australia has already started on a very good system that up to 16 years of age, no one will be permitted to be on the social media, on Instagram, on WhatsApp, or any other kind of a social media. So that one step, I think Australia has already taken, and it is going to have a substantial effect, because this radicalization starts from a very young age. And we have seen this father and son. How the son got radicalized is also a very important aspect, because father was radicalized, so he passed it on to his son, and also the kind of friends and the peers he must be he must be having in the society. So we need to take these factors also into account when we discuss these aspects. And also I think this social media part will have to be monitored by the intelligence agencies to see that what kind of people have this kind of a tendency. And the second aspect is, I told you, strictures on licensing of firearms is also very important. And the third aspect is they will have to bruce up their intelligence sharing mechanisms and their policing, especially during the religious events.
Yes, with that I would like to thank Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar for sharing that insight. Thank you. Now moving on, Russia has said that any ceasefire in Ukraine depends on reaching a comprehensive and lasting peace deal, rejecting what it calls short-term or unviable solutions. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has said that Moscow wants to end the war while securing its interests and long-term stability in Europe, warning Russia would not accept a pause that allows fighting to resume. Russian officials also said there would be no concessions on Donbas or Crimea, and ruled out any deployment of Western troops in Ukraine. At the same time, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko said he believes Russian President Vladimir Putin wants peace, adding that continued escalation could have dangerous consequences for Europe and beyond. Meanwhile, Ukraine says talks with the United States are continuing, with President Volodymyr Zelensky's team set to visit Washington as diplomatic efforts intensify. Now for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's joining us as international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Doctor, for staying with us. Now, how do you see, where are we right now in terms of the ceasefire? How close are we? How far are we? And how might this ongoing US-Ukraine talks and the sticking points influence diplomatic dynamics, given Russia's rejection of some Western troops involvement?
It's a very interesting question, Asuma, because
Thank you.
I think possibly in the minds of everybody this question is ringing, that US and Zelensky's talks are on, because that would be one factor, the outcome of these talks, which is going to dictate how far we are from the ceasefire. But the Russian posturing is already there. Putin has welcomed this 28-point peace plan, and he wants it to be further taken up by Zelensky. And the third is the messaging by Lukashenko, because Lukashenko is also from Belarus. He's trying to do a proxy messaging, and he's also trying to create a geopolitical environment like a facilitator and especially a military subordinate of Russia. So we are finding there is a politically signaling happening from Belarus, from Russia, and the pressure is on Zelensky now. And within the internal party of Zelensky also, there is a lot of pressure to come to some kind of a settlement. The problem areas you actually mentioned is that the Ukraine leadership cannot politically accept a peace that legitimizes a territorial annexation, because that is one fundamental thing which is going to hurt the sovereignty of Ukraine. So that would be one aspect which would need a detailed negotiation with the Russians, because the Russians' stand is non-negotiable as far as territory return is concerned, because whatever in the Donbass area and other areas of Zaporozhye and Kherson, the Russians are not going to relent on this. So possibly in some areas like Sumy and Kharkiv, where the Russians have also captured some territory, they may still give it back to Ukraine, but not in these areas. So that would be a sticking point as far as the ceasefire is concerned. The second aspect is with regard to NATO membership and with regard to security guarantees. I don't think that should be a problem, because Zelensky has publicly he has accepted that he would not like to be a part of NATO, and he will accept that kind of a thing. And certain amount of security guarantees, I think USA would be contingent in actually giving these security guarantees, which I think should hold as far as Ukraine is concerned. So, and
Yes.
Russia also, is not wanting to prolong this conflict, because see, it's been 4 years. Putin came to India, and its economy has been to a large extent affected. So Russia is also under pressure to get to a ceasefire. So I think this territory part of this discussion is going to be vital, and it is going to decide when the ceasefire will take place.
With that, I would like to thank Dr. and Major General Rajan Kochar for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now moving on, US President Donald Trump has signed a proclamation expanding entry restrictions on foreign nationals, widening the list to nearly 40 countries, with the new rules taking effect on January 1st, 2026. The White House says the measures are aimed at countries with persistent gaps in screening, vetting, and information sharing, citing national security and public safety concerns. Under the expanded policy, 5 additional countries, including Syria, Niger, and Mali, now face full entry restrictions. Joining nations such as Iran and Somalia, partial entry limits have also been extended to several countries, including Nigeria, Senegal, and Venezuela. The move follows a recent attack in Washington involving an asylum seeker and reflects the administration's broader push to tighten immigration, visa issuance, and entry standards for foreign nationals as well. Now we move on to our next news. US President Donald Trump has announced that he intends to nominate Troy Edgar as the next US ambassador to El Salvador, tapping a senior Homeland Security official for a key diplomatic post in Central America. Edgar most recently served as a deputy secretary at the Department of Homeland Security, where he was involved in overseeing the department's operations and policy priorities. The ambassadorship to El Salvador is considered strategically important for the United States. The country is a major partner on migration security cooperation, counter-narcotics efforts, and regional stability. Washington also has significant interests in economic ties and governance issues in the region, By nominating a former senior DHS official, Trump appears to be signaling an emphasis on security and migration-related cooperation in U.S.-El Salvador relations. Now we move on to Middle East. The head of Israel's Mossad intelligence agency has said Israel must ensure Iran never revives its nuclear program, 6 months after Israeli and U.S. strikes hit Iranian nuclear facilities during a brief but intense war. Speaking at an award ceremony in Jerusalem on Tuesday, Mossad chief David Barnea said Iran's nuclear project had been gravely damaged and stressed that Israel, in close coordination with the United States, bears responsibility for preventing its reactivation. Barnea, whose term ends in June 2026, said Iran's leadership remains determined to pursue nuclear weapons despite the setbacks, which Iran denies. He praised Israel's surprise opening strikes in the 12-day conflict, claiming they exposed the depth of Israeli intelligence penetration inside of Iran. Barnea also expressed strong skepticism about diplomacy with Tehran, warning against what he described as a bad nuclear deal. Western powers have long accused Iran of seeking nuclear weapons, a claim Tehran consistently denies. Current U.S. President Donald Trump withdrew from the 2015 nuclear agreement during his first term, a deal Israel has opposed. Iran and the United States resumed talks in April, mediated by Oman, but negotiations collapsed after Israel launched its attack on June 13 this year, prompting U.S. strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. While President Trump has said Iran's program was obliterated, the Pentagon estimates the strikes delayed it by 1 to 2 years. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has dismissed these claims that the program was destroyed. Let's listen in.
הרעיון להמשיך לפתח פצצת גרעין עדיין מפעם בליבם. לנו אחריות לוודא שפרויקט הגרעין, אשר נפגע אנושות בשיתוף פעולה הדוק עם האמריקאים, לא יופעל לעולם.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Peter Baum. He's an editor at Weekly Blitz, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mr. Baum, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, what are the political risks and benefit of Israel and the United States now prioritizing preemptive strikes over negotiated nuclear agreements with Iran?
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me again. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
I don't think there are any political risks, and what we have seen here is a coordinated and, to date, a very successful campaign to further isolate Iran than she's already isolated. What I mean by that is we've seen what President Trump is doing with Venezuela, Iran's major ally in the Americas. We've seen the pressure that is being put on Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah. In fact, the Israelis have decided to pause attacks on Hezbollah whilst the Lebanese army enacts some demilitarization. Iran is isolated from the Houthis because of the way that the Houthis have suffered and because of the way the United Arab Emirates are now imposing their will on the area. So this campaign, this statement by David Barnea, is totally in line with what one would expect from the anti-Iranian powers to continue pressuring Iran. We've seen the the European nations do it with sanctions. Added to all this, Iran is suffering economically from various causes. The Iranian rial, I read today, is at an all-time low, 1,130,000 rials to $1 US. It's absolutely worthless. The lack of rain is putting tremendous pressure on Iranian society in the major cities. And Barnea knows that Iran, because of the loss of personnel engaged formally in the nuclear bomb creation, and the way that the Israelis and Americans destroyed the various reactors, David Barnea, as head of Mossad, knows that Iran currently is in no position to recreate what she had created in previous years. And this is just another weapon. Statements made from Barnea of being head of Mossad to continue the political pressure on Iran and to isolate it even further. I think we will continue to see statements like this from the Trump administration, perhaps a softer tone from the European nations, but it's all designed to pressure Iran politically, which at the moment seems to be working quite successfully.
Right. And how does Israel's emphasis on preventing any revival of Iran's nuclear program, how do you think this is affecting the balance between military action and diplomacy in regional security policy towards Iran at this time?
Yeah, the regional security policy is really designed, firstly, to isolate Iran, secondly, to dilute Iran's ability to provide weaponry and funding to its proxies, such as the Houthis, Hezbollah and Hamas, and thirdly, to ensure that if Israel believes that she is not achieving that goal, then she will go in militarily and bomb Hezbollah, as we've seen, to continue the military campaign against Hamas, as we've seen. The Houthis have been particularly quiet, and this is because I don't think the world's media realizes how severe a blow the Houthis were dealt from the various bombings of its ports and its infrastructure, and of course the climatic conditions in Yemen, which aren't helping at all. So in terms of the regional policy, I think we will continue to see pressure mounting, as I've just suggested, politically, militarily, economically, on Iran and on her proxies in the area. That will be the regional policy of the Trump administration and Israel and those supporting Trump and Israel.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Peter Baum for joining us today and sharing that insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move on to our next news. Apple is in early discussions with Indian chip makers about assembling and packaging iPhone components in India. According to a report in Indian media, if confirmed, it would mark the first time Apple has considered carrying out part of its chip assembly and packaging process in the country. The report says Apple has held talks with CG Semi, a Murugappa Group company that is building a semiconductor assembly and testing facility in Sanand, Gujarat. While it is unclear which chips would be handled there, display-related components are among those being considered. The move fits with Apple's broader strategy to shift more iPhone production to India, aiming to make most US-bound devices there by the end of 2026. The company has been accelerating those plans as it seeks to reduce reliance on China amid tariff and trade uncertainties. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.